a bit on microservices, right? So can you, let's say you have a microservice that you have to implement, and why do you call this a microservice when you have REST APIs, right? So we do have REST APIs and we do have the terminology of microservices. Right? What is the difference between the two? Or are they both the same?
No, no, no. So microservices comes into picture when we have some problem with the traditional monolithic application, and when the RESTful APIs are the one which helps you to transmit the data from one another over the network, and it uses REST principles. Uh, but these two are different. What you can say different component of a one picture. uh, so microservices is more sort of so basically how microservices evolved is basically from the monolithic architecture, since we have different different drawbacks of the monolithic. So what we did is like we decomposes the functionality and basically define our service boundary, like okay, this can be another service. So basically we drive like what can be our component for the one big monolithic application. The problem with the monolithic application is a lot, like let's say if uh, uh, as and when the application grows in, the the maintainability and the execution and the deployment get very tedious at times, because you need to, once you make any changes in the concrete class of the interfaces, it deals with a lot of implementation classes which it involves. Let's say if I'm currently working on one of the module and I have to deploy the whole application in order to get the changes effective, but that is not the case with the microservices. So we define the microservices in a way that it will segregate it based on the domain specific. So we
Okay,
basically we define on the domain type
got it.
approach. Yeah.
So out of the microservices pattern, right? Can you tell me where do we use API gateway and why it is used?
So API gateway is basically works as an front end controller for us. Actually, it uses the front end controller design pattern. Basically, it helps you to get all the requests at clubbed in one point, and then basically this will help us to this is help us, this design pattern basically help us for direction and sorting purposes. So basically we have, let's say, two services for which we have defined the endpoint in our API gateway. Now this API gateway will be responsible uh, for redirecting the request based on the URL context path for which the endpoint is. So it will help us for those purposes. So the API gateway.
No, but why should I use an API gateway? I mean, what you said is just a front controller, right? I mean,
Yeah.
why can't I directly call my REST endpoints? Why should I
So
have this front controller?
so it also does a lot of functionality. Like you can also enable the load balancing in it. So it will also, based on the request or based on certain parameters, it will redirect it the request. But let's say if the API gateway is not there, so if I'm hitting a particular uh, microservices, then also the calls will go right. But what if the scenario, if I want of certain parameters to be checked, of certain pre-authorization to be happening at the API for all the requests it does proceed, right? Then in that case, API gateway will be beneficial, because let's say if I wanted to implement certain functionality for all the requests which comes in irrespective of the microservices functionality, then in that case also we can use API.
Okay. So, have you implemented API gateway in any of your microservices that you've worked on?
Yeah, yeah, I can.
So, which framework did you use to implement?
So we have used Spring Cloud Gateway.
Okay. And did you do any authentication authorization using API gateway?
Yeah, we do. So we basically uses our we uses a concept called nonce token. Now this nonce token is response. Basically, we are checking whether this particular request which comes from our consumers basically authorized to have the uses of our services or not. So there we are uses like public and private key. So basically we ask the consumer to generate those, and then private key with them, and then public key with us. So all the public key is being configured at our API end. So they when they generated a nonce token, so nonce token for nonce token, we are using JWS. Uh, and then whenever they generate the nonce token, we validate, okay, this is a public key. If it's successful, then we let the process go to the requested microservices. If not, then we restrict at the API level.
Okay. So what is rate limiting?
Rate limiting basically is a way by which you you restrict the numbers of requests to hit a particular endpoint. So essentially, let's say,
Mhm.
yeah. So essentially, let's say now this has to be on the calculation basis. Let's say first need to identify whether after how much throughput of the request that the service is not able to not able to response back properly and takes a lot of time. Then after understanding, then you can apply a rate limiting number. And also
But why should we do that? Doesn't that mean that your application is not performing as expected?
no, this is done in order to basically there's a two there's basically the main purpose to reduce the ABI, the endpoint abuse, which basically state that uh, uh, since we have a, let's say if we have a n number of consumers, right? So let's say if I wanted to restrict to those n number of consumers with the concurrency level of this, then we basically are limiting, like say, if some other consumers comes in and then start hitting those particular requests, then it will basically uh, limit the number of the requests which let it pass through. So yeah, I think that's what we saw.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Have you done any microservice to microservice communication?
Yeah, yeah.
Or do you always use API gateway
No,
for
no, no.
inter microservice communication?
No, no. We do microservice communication.
So how do I have to, let's say I have a microservice A and it has to talk to microservice B.
Mhm.
How does that happen?
So we can use different approaches. Like currently, we are using HTTP clients. We are using for one of our application. We are using Flash template. For one of our using, we are using Fin client. We start using web client. Now this can be now these are the synchronous way we can achieve it, but there are also asynchronous way, like we can use Apache Kafka message broker basically to achieve the same functionality, but the method is asynchronous. Now this can also be achieved uh, within the framework, like within the infrastructure. Now, currently we are using Kubernetes, like enterprise Kubernetes. We are using, so under that we are using service mesh, which uses isoto to basically redirect. So basically, we are not using the HTTP endpoint. We are using the HTTP endpoint. Why? Because it internally communicate with gateways. It internally uses with different servers, like internal servers and gateway servers and interchangeable servers. So internally, it makes the contact with the use of the cluster IP. Uh, so also we can use that if we enable the service mesh.
Okay, got it. So, um, so in these types of communications, right? How do I ensure that my other service responds within the time frame that it needs to respond, and how do I take care of, let's say my B service is down, right? In those cases, how can I ensure that all my requests are don't go into a loop, or you don't keep on retrying, etc. Are there any mechanisms or patterns using which you can address this problem?
So to address these problems, we can use design patterns for that. Like we have something called circuit breaker design pattern. We can also use retry mechanism, uh, and then so basically, service design circuit breaker design pattern has three states. Like if it is closed, then basically all the requests it will let it pass through. Uh, and then we have open state. Let's say if it understand, like one of the request fails, then it will become an open state, so that other request, and also it has to integrate with the fallback method, so that let a consumer know that the service is not reachable. And there's a semi closed state which is state that after a certain threshold it will keep on trying some of the request which is caters, and then if it is successful, then basically it closes the circuit and will again keep on repeating start.
Okay, fine. Got it. Um, can can you share your screen? I just need any Java IDE or editor. Any of that is fine.
Okay. Mm. Can we start open online compiler? Is that fine?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, let me share my screen. Mm, yeah. Mm, uh, mm, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what you can do is, can you instantiate an array of integers? You can remove line number 6 and
Saka, can I interrupt the mic? Because
yeah, that's fine.
okay,
But
yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
it gets a little feeble. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
When you talk, you can take it back.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, can you come? Can you come
So
back?
instantiate array of integers, please.
Okay,
Array of integers.
okay, yeah,
Right? I'll give you the numbers. Sorry. Don't use the new keyword. I'll give you the numbers.
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, 5 comma
Sir, come on.
10 comma 20 comma 5 comma 10 comma 5. Okay. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
I got a call. 1 second. I need to pick. Hey, sorry for that.
No, no worries.
Okay. So now, this is my array. This is my parent array.
Okay.
And let's assume you can have integer k is equal to 3, let's say.
Okay.
Okay. So now above is my parent array, and below what I have is the size of my subarray that I want to find out. Okay.
Okay.
I want to find out the subarray of my parent array, which gives me the maximum sum. Okay. So when I say maximum sum, that means that I need a subarray which has consecutive elements from my parent array. When I say consecutive, it's consecutive elements.
Okay.
And when I add up all those consecutive elements, it gives me the maximum sum.
So basically, we are
So
talking about the like window, right? So let's say if I pick up this window, so I should be
5,
having
10, 20, yeah, it is 35. And then my k is 3, right? So 10, 20,
5.
5 is again 35.
Okay.
Now again 25, 10 is again 35.
Okay.
And then 5, 10, 5 is 20. So I have the maximum sum as 35, but it matches for 3 subarrays.
Got it.
So I want my subarrays. I don't want my maximum sum. I want my subarrays. Okay. And this is just an example parent array that I gave you. And it can have 1,000 or 2,000 elements or more than that. And my window size is also variable.
Okay.
So I need a program which can help me retrieve my subarrays, which have the maximum sum. And while doing that, I want you to program in such a way that the time complexity and space complexity are taken care.
Okay.
Yeah, you can pause for a minute. Ask me any questions if you're clear or not. I can answer, and then you can start.
Okay. So basically, this can also be changed, right? So it can't be specific one.
It's a variable.
That I understood. So I believe what I have understood is like so basically we need to work on the window side. So this can be a window, this can be a window. So basically we need to uh, return the window which having the maximum subarray. That's it.
I need the subarray. Yeah,
Yeah.
whichever way.
And the subarray length will be like consist of 3 elements for that example, and it can be a number set, but it
Yeah.
can't. Okay. Okay, let me just think it out. Okay, do that. Can I have 5 minutes to think it about?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can ask me any questions also.
Okay. So this, okay. Okay, let's try. Uh, So let's call it like so all the steps. So for that, so um, let's keep it as does it can be negative. Does it matter? We should also have key. If names of suitable okay, then we can check. No, we're going to check it like let's go to the file. No. Till I only needs to get till this one, so to update the Windows. See, yes. See, under template. So for now, let's save this. Let's go next. Let's just say uh, then so if some then essentially what do we need to do? We want to do self max some equals to some, and the L can be max 7 can be stores copy always that I want copy of range whatever the range of this, and then I okay let's keep so this should be because if it is a length of 3 it should okay if you go with key then this has to change. Okay, for now let's just consider this number. If this is we already touched it. No, not here. Not here. I think we should.
Yeah, Akash. Can we just go through what was done?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm not sure what happened, but I think by mistake it got to other screen.
Okay.
Can
Anyways,
I
I was
can I write the
looking into
sudo
that.
root? Okay.
No, I was looking into that. So basically, I one place, right? What I saw is we mentioned the window size as 3, but then you
Yeah,
have
I
taken up the sum as
yeah,
one after the other.
yeah.
Any
I
reason why? Yep.
no. I just making sure that I'm writing the right case, and then eventually once the right case, and then I will start making the generic case over there. I will use the stream for that as a one line of code. So that's what I thought, but for the base case, I'm just writing.
Yeah. So and how would you have just used one if condition, right? So how would you think that it is going to work when it is based on just the index?
No. I'm just writing the else condition as well. So inside the else condition, it should be like, if the length is greater than 0, so basically we make sure that whatever the int, whatever the array we do have, then it's a maximum sum, and then the max sum, the sorry sub array, and the max sum is basically the sum of all those items, if for the if else condition.
Okay. But I'm still just wondering, right? How does one loop work for it? I mean, I understand the if and else portion of it,
Okay.
but how would I get a save of the indexes which has the maximum sum, and how would you be printing them?
So basically, I'm using that copy on a copy of range. So once I had that particular maximum sum, so I just again updating that indexes at the end, and then visit in the indexes.
But how will you know that that index is the max sum? And
So
where
when
are you saving these arrays to?
so basically we have a one check, right? If it is greater than the max sum we already have. So currently, initially we are using the int min, so the integer minimum value, and then basically we are summing those up on the bracket of it, and then basically once that particular once we have the maximum on that particular loop for that particular sum, when we have the maximum of that, so basically we are summing at each window, and then basically we are saying okay, if the max sum is greater than this sum, then that's okay. uh, Assign it that value, and then based on the index what we having from the if from the for loop coming to the if loop under the if inside the if loop, and then we are saying okay, arrays dot copy, and then basically the range of it I, and then I plus c for that case, and I plus k for this generic case.
Okay. So what is the space complexity?
Space, since I'm using like one for loop for that, so space it takes around O of n, and n should be the number of the element because we are iterating only this one time.
Okay, fine. Can you stop sharing, please? Okay. So how do you connect to database from a microservice?
Um, how to? Okay, so currently we are using like Spring JPA, Spring Data JPA for that, and which internally uses the Hibernate, and we are using the entity manager, and basically we have created our own artifactory for that, so for creation of the bean, and based on the condition actually we have defined at the rate condition on bean, and then we essentially provide our own like we have created one properties like for ng dot db2 use equals to true, and then ng dot oracle dot use, so like that, and then basically we have to define our, so if from the application side we have to define our own database configuration like spring.database, spring.data source dot for whichever uh, database you wanted to connect that particular class of of the particular database like MySQL for
Okay.
that particular
Have you used
database.
any NoSQL databases?
As of now, no.
Okay, fine. And okay, how are you? You said you had some experience on AWS, right?
Yeah.
So you also spoke about Kubernetes as well, right? Did you? So can you just tell me what is a container when you deploy your code into a container, right? Let's say I have to deploy my microservice into a containerized service of AWS. So what is a container and how does this deployment happen?
So just a disclaimer. So I have not used AWS for the containerization. Currently, we are using our
Okay.
Red Hat OpenShift. It is enterprise Kubernetes, which does that job for us. So basically, we have created a deployment config.yml, and inside that particular YML, we have defined our like segments, like API version, and then basically the kind. Let's say if I wanted to deploy, so currently we are using horizontal pod scaler, and which create the containers for us, like the pod. So pod is the smallest unit upon which the microservices basically deployed and basically function like an entity, and then basically the Kubernetes also uses something called topology, which internally uses MTLS inside it to communicate with the other pods. uh, so we are using different YMLs to achieve that. And under the YML, we have like we also can check like the CPU and the memory utilization. Like under the resources, we have limit, and then under the limit we have CPU, and then under the resource we have CPU and memory. Then we can define like how much a pod will take, and also it does contain the config maps properties. We can also use the secret around it inside that particular deployment config.yml. And since we are using service mesh, so it uses like gateway.yml, and also value.yml. Since also we are using Helm chart for basically for basically the integration part. We are using for that Helm chart, and then basically the Helm chart will reach out to the artifactory. There's different artifactory for which it basically put down the image over there. And once we wanted to deploy anything, we use something called Lightspeed Enterprise Classic. Sorry, Lightspeed Enterprise product. We are using Harness for the deployment part. Enable Kubernetes. Enable that OpenShift.
Okay, fine. So, during your build process, right? Can you tell me how are your versions maintained for your microservices? Versioning on any Artifactory or any other tools that you use?
Versioning of the tools.
Versioning of your application, the module that you're working on.
Okay. So basically, we are using actually we are using versioning on the endpoints. So we are using currently we are using on the context path itself, so that the consumer know. But there are some others we can also achieve that. We can also
No, I'm
use
not talking about endpoints versioning.
okay.
I'm talking about the build version. Were you involved in the build? Did you do any pipelines of the Jenkins or any other tool that you use?
So currently we have a different DevOps team to look out for. So not specifically, but yeah, I have seen the YMLs file like value.yml, which uses 0.1.0 build version it uses. So on that build version, our chart is prepared for the Helm chart. Like the build version is like 0.1 point, and then the build version. So build version is basically one random number, not a random number. It's a build increment number, and then whatever
Okay,
the push we have put is basically takes into the commit ID, and then basically the feature name, a feature branch name.
okay, got it. Okay, okay, Akash, I'm done with my questions. Do you have anything for me?
No, sir, I think I've already asked questions. So,
Okay, okay, then no problem. Thanks, Akash. Thanks for your time. Nice talking to you. Thank you.
thank you, sir.